AI hallucinates, and AI doesn't always give the right answers. And AI gives the answers that you want to hear sometimes. You have to be aware of that, and you have to educate people on how to notice that, how to pick up on it. Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Tradepreneur Show, episode 60. This is a milestone, and I'm excited to welcome back a guest I've had on a few more episodes, also a friend, Scott Stolze. How you doing, Scott?
Good, Patrick. Always good to see you and the team.
Yeah, and you know, the other milestone on episode 60 is I'm actually wearing a headset. I've never worn a headset on an episode because if I had a guest, they've always been live in studio. The other milestone is you are my first guest to be joining the podcast remotely. So I'm pretty excited about that because it opens up a whole bunch of guests that I can have on the podcast that can get in remotely. And I've had a lot of guests that have wanted to be on the podcast. It just wasn't practical. So now I guess I have to admit, you're kind of the guinea pig here.
Well, it's probably good that I am. And considering some of the things we're going to talk about today, it's probably fitting in that regard. I had no idea when you just said a minute ago at the top that this is episode number 60 for you. First of all, congratulations. That's a lot of progress. You know, we've all heard over the years the stories of many of the podcasts that don't take off is simply because the person who started it gave up after like 10 or a dozen or 20 of them. So props to you for continuing to go. And yeah, I remember when I was in the studio, I was so impressed with how smoothly things went. You have a great team there to help execute all this. Now I'm excited to be part of this first episode where you have me remote. And I hope I live up to that. I hope I do my job well so that you can do more of these.
I'm sure you will. Podcasting is like anything else worthwhile, whether it's working out, eating right, getting a good night's sleep, building a business. The secret ingredient to all of those things is consistency. Just show up. And if you can show up and be consistent, to me, that's almost half the battle.
It's one of our favorite terms in business and in life. Consistency will solve a lot of issues, including learning, because the more you apply yourself to something on a regular basis and consistent basis, the more you're going to learn and know more of what you want to do and more of what you want to do less of, I should say. But yeah, no, I'm excited for this. And you know, you and I, just one other point I want to make before we get into some of the reasons why we're here. I think you and I are really good at going with, listen, nothing's going to be perfect the first time out. You know, you have much better, I'll just say it. You have great audio equipment in that studio, me, not as much in my little home setup here. But this was what makes us better because we see what went well in this kind of an episode and conversation and where we need to improve. And I know you and I are very comfortable. We're not perfect, but we're comfortable in saying not everything's going to be great the first time out. So I'm glad I'm doing this with you.
Yeah, I am too. And well said. And, you know, it's funny because one of the things I'm noticing is the audio cuts out a little bit, at least in my headset. So whether that shows up in the final product or not, I don't know. But you know what? I don't want to say I don't care. I care, but I'm not stressed out about it. It is what it is. I remember Frank Harrison, my mentor and the gentleman Francisco and I bought the business from, said to me once when I worked my way up to the general manager role, he says, you know what I like about you, Patrick, is you don't panic. You don't get frazzled, and it doesn't matter what's going on. You stay composed and you stay focused. And I do have to say, I think that's from my days on the fire department and on a dive team, because you have to stay that way, right? And I believe it's a skill set that I've developed. And I see all the time people just get stressed out and freaked out. And I'm often reminded, I had to remind the team of and I know you're familiar with this, it's the cycle of anytime you introduce change, put something new, whether it's a person or a process, take something away, you go through that cycle. I believe it's forming, storming, norming, performing, right? And I told the team, I said, look, that people freak out when you go through these changes, but I said, that's the storming. And then you get to the forming, and then you get to the performing. And guess what? As soon as you introduce some level of change again, you're going to go through it again. And the more you go through it as a team, the faster you can get through it. And so that's what I like. And I will tell you, I think that leads me into a pretty good segue into one of the topics we're going to discuss today, because right now I think we're going through that cycle on a global scale. And it all has to do with this everyday word. You can't go without hearing it. And AI, artificial intelligence. And I've done a few episodes on it, and I've had people on the little clips I put on social media ask me, like I've even had comments like, how much are you getting paid to talk about this stuff? And the first thing I think is, wow, I could get paid to talk about this stuff. I wish I could get paid to talk about this stuff, but I'm not a Joe Rogan, right? It's passionate. I'm using it more and more. And you and I have talked about it a lot, kind of off the air, like in chats, in phone conversations. And we have very opposing views to some extent and very aligned views, which I think is good and healthy. But it's kind of led us into coming up with an endeavor we're going to do together. And I'm going to toss it to you and let you introduce it and talk about it.
Yeah, no, it's a very interesting time. I've been going through a lot of change myself too, with learning to use. I don't come from an extremely technical background, so I've always been open. And there's a reason I'm sharing this. I've always been open to using different tools and technologies, especially right. What's the obvious thing that we always think about and say? If a tool can help us do our job better, more effectively, and even quicker, not to mention things like saving money along the way, there's a lot of appeal, and we want to do that. So I've always been very open-minded, but boy, I'll tell you, Patrick, if you told me a year ago that I would be as invested in AI as I am now, both personally and professionally, because it's a big part of the work that I'm doing right these days. And this is to your point earlier, how we've been talking about it more and more. We've been sharing, you're sharing with me what you're doing in general and in your business, and I'm sharing what I've been doing on my end. And I think we're both seeing the value. So I appreciate that a couple people, you being one, encouraged me to apply myself more in using it hands-on every day. That's the first thing. But the other thing, more importantly to what you just brought up, where you and I are heading now is, and I think we're going to make a massive impact. And it's very timely, it's very relevant, it's practical, and I'll just say I think it's needed. Is as I've been learning more and more about the tools, and anybody who hears this, Patrick, you in this conversation, and anybody who listens to this in the future, think about this. Whether it's in your office, at home, maybe a spouse, a significant other, your kids, whomever's around you, and even in your own personal endeavors, like you maybe have a business or you're thinking of building something, what are some of the things that you're noticing? And I'll just throw 2 or 3 examples out there. The curiosity levels go way up. We're also like, oh my gosh, like, can I do this? Let me see if I can do this. Then you do something using, whether it's Gemini or ChatGPT or Claude or whatever, then you do something with the tool and you're almost blown away by, I've never done that before. I can't believe that I just in the last 15 minutes did something that maybe a long time ago it took me weeks to do, or I've just never done it. So that's another ripple effect that I'm seeing, not only with myself, but with other people. And then the third thing, which leads, is very related to where you and I are heading, is how is this affecting people's day-to-day in their job, in their career? And this is a really important part because we're all, we want to look out for ourselves. How is it affecting everybody around you at work or in your business? Because frankly, if everybody's struggling, and I'm not saying that they are, but if you're in an environment where most people are struggling with the tools and the adoption of AI, well, that's not really a great thing for you. Patrick and I want to encourage people to not only be invested in leveling up your use of AI and how it can supplement and complement the work that you do, but can you also lend yourself as a resource or a good example for other people around you? If you're in a traditional job, and Patrick, I want to get your take on this in a second. If you're in a traditional job and you started to use AI to amplify the work that you do, and you see the value and benefit of it, are you going to turn to the person next to you and share? Are you going to go to your management, your boss, your leadership and say, hey, you know what? I know we haven't fully vetted or rolled this out yet, but here's something that I discovered using this tool. Here's something an output that I think can help the business or help a customer. If you're proactively learning the tools and then doing these other things that I'm mentioning now, helping those around you to help your employer or your business, which obviously in turn helps your customers, that's the ripple effect we all want. And Patrick, I think this has resonated when you and I have talked. When I've said these things to you, what I'm seeing with other people, I think that's exactly what you're doing and you want to do in your business.
Yeah, well, very much so, especially in my business, because if I can get more and more of the team to understand AI and the role it plays in the organization and in their job, and they can learn it. And when I say learn it, right, it's very intuitive, but learn to adapt it, right? Not necessarily learn how to use it, because it's just like having a chat conversation in many respects or a voice conversation, but how they got to learn how to use it to enhance their job and what they're doing and become more effective and more efficient. And if I could get everybody in this company using it, looking at it and applying it, at least 10 to 15% of what I do with it, it takes us to a whole nother level. And it's unbelievable. But that's a heavy lift, because you've got all different personalities and you've got people getting information from all different sources. And there's people that want to learn it, and there's people that are using it for certain things, but they don't know how to use it on a grander scale. And a lot of that has to do with, there's early adapters. I'm an early adapter. I'm going to see technology and I'm going to kind of run with it until I figure out that it's premature or it's not the right thing. But not everybody's that way. And so, especially if they think that it could threaten their job, right? If it could make them irrelevant. I use the analogy, I go back to the Industrial Revolution, right? And when we came up, what was the machine, the cotton gin, right? And then the lathes, they could do all of this stuff and automate it. It didn't eliminate jobs. It eliminated some specific jobs, but it also created jobs, because now you needed people to be able to manufacture these things, work on them, understand them. And I also look back to like the nail gun. The nail gun didn't eliminate carpenters. Truss construction didn't eliminate carpenters. It made them more efficient. They could work faster. They could work smarter. And that's basically how we are, how I view AI. And like anything, you have to have parameters around it and whatnot. But it's really, how do you get people, how do you help people understand it and understand how to apply it into their daily life and into their work life? And I think one of the things people say, well, daily life, how would I use it in my daily life? Well, guess what? You want to get healthy? You want to lose weight? You can prompt AI to create a meal plan for you to lose 1 pound a week or half a pound a week, whatever it is. Build a calorie out, build my macros to this, and then create a shopping list so I can make 3 to 4 meals a day that provides all of that. And boom, in a matter of minutes, you have it. And now you have a shopping list that you're normally having to write down and everything like that. So, I mean, that's just a very simplistic example, but there's people that aren't even doing it, using it for that.
Well, I remember, you and I are old enough to remember when the smartphones, we went from the flip phones that were pretty like 2 and 3 uses or good ways to use or leverage those kind of phones and technology. But the smartphone came out and people were a little slow to adapt. And within 3, 4, 5 years, many people were running almost every part of their life through their phone. I think the same thing's going to happen with AI. So point well taken. I think over time, pretty quickly, within the next 1 to 2 years, people will start to see how it can benefit them personally. And as far as the work side, but what you laid out, what you referenced is exactly what you and I are championing. And we're not alone, by the way. There are people, I've been meeting people here in the Phoenix area. There are people out there who have such a healthy outlook on this and want to support and guide and give people opportunity, give people forums. I went to an AI learning lab this week. The person who puts it on, host it, no charge, brought food. He does these every week, brought food in and just wants to give people a place to come and learn and get more acclimated with the tools. But at any rate, what you brought up before is exactly what we're going to be advocating for. Is on the one side, you have the technology, which does all these amazing things. And then on the other side of the equation, though, is okay, how are we going to get people excited, engaged, committed, and most importantly, empowered? Because as we know, you and I have talked about this many times in recent years, we look out for ourselves. It's a very normal human trait and quality, and let's embrace it. So as a leader, we want to embrace that too. If people are looking out, what's in it for me? Okay, I'm going to feed that. Let's help other leaders and managers teach and show their team members how they themselves can benefit from using this technology in their job and in their team or department and in their company. Like whether it's making more money or climbing the ladder or just feeling more fulfilled or all the above, this stuff can help you do that. So we're going to champion that. We're going to advocate for that. And also the other part of the equation, Patrick, that I think you and I and others like us need to be doing these next couple of years especially is how do you do it in a organized, effective way as a company or a business? Like you have to be mindful of security. You have to be mindful of data. You have to be mindful of consistency. You have to be mindful of, you don't want ultimately an organization where 3 people are doing it one way and 10 are doing it another. So we have to help leaders develop process where they're bringing everybody along with them and not make it so clunky.
Yeah, and you also have to understand that AI hallucinates, and AI doesn't always give the right answers, and AI gives the answers that you want to hear sometimes. So you have to be aware of that, and you have to educate people on how to notice that, how to pick up on it. And I think that while there's people out there, individuals that want to learn it, the big thing that we're really focused on is the individual, but the business, the CEO, the general manager, whether a small business or larger business. How do I have the conversation with the team? How do I introduce it in the right way to my organization so that it maximizes our efficiency, our performance, improves customer service without being a victim of embracing technology for technology's sake, not really having a true roadmap of how this should be rolled out in your organization. And it's kind of like, I'm building some apps right now for custom workflows with AI. And one of the things that you've got to be very careful of is understanding and having a plan of what you want it to do and what it's going to look like and what the workflow is going to look like. Because if you just start building it, you end up with a Frankenstein of an app. And that's what the real danger is in rolling AI out in your organization, is if you don't have a structure and you don't have a process and you don't have an end in mind of what this is going to look like, and you can't communicate it correctly, you will have a Frankenstein rollout. And then you and your team are going to hate AI, say, we tried it, it doesn't work, when in reality it does. It just wasn't rolled out in a systematic, processed way.
Patrick, check this out. So, and if I can get these last 2 points in based on what you just said, I'm good. I love this stuff. So you were emphasizing and validating 2 really critical things. Number 1, yes, AI, what is it giving us? So to anybody who's fearful of and anxious about what AI could, how the impact would be on your job, your role, etc., well, there's one for you right there. Make yourself valuable at overseeing what AI is doing and certainly checking, validating, reviewing everything that it's giving you and making sure it's working properly in your organization, whatever it is you may be doing. That's a role. That's a role right there. You just described there's an opportunity for people. And then maybe a little more importantly for what we're doing with businesses and leadership within businesses is, and I think this is fun. Like, wouldn't it be fun for leaders to think about not only what the technology is going to do for our organization, but how am I going to, let me make this like a chess match here and enjoy it. How am I going to strategically roll this out and help my organization adopt it by communicating effectively, leading with great intention, and being very mindful of, am I empowering and giving people opportunity with it? Because let's face it, at the end of the day, the more you lean into and give your people opportunity, the more, in most healthy organizations, that's how it works, the more you're going to win. Why would any leader want to figure it all out him or herself when they can lean into their team to help them do it? So this has so much meat on the bone, it's not even funny. And you just hit on opportunity for people to secure value and roles in their future. And then let's make this fun for leaders. Make sure you're framing it right, communicating well, and bringing people along with you.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. Obviously, we're very aligned on this. I'm amazed at people a lot sharper than me, more successful than me, that are doing similar things to me and in business. It may not be in the trades or anything like that, but that when we sit down and we talk about AI, or I've been in groups where we have speakers on AI, and how much or how little people actually know about its true capabilities of what it can do. And I'm just in awe of it. And I think that the business that can see its potential, even if they don't fully understand its potential, but just knows like, hey, I go back to the day when we had the internet was coming out and websites, and nobody had websites except for a few early adapters. And the people that had the websites were ahead of the curve. They didn't maybe fully understand it, but they had an idea that this is something that's going to continue to exist and become more and more prevalent. And they got it on board early to get it figured out early. And I believe that's where we are with AI. And the company right now, there is a window of time that still exists, that the company that can get it deployed in the right way and get their team using it is going to have a competitive advantage. Just like those early companies with websites, the early companies with e-commerce. I mean, look at Amazon. Amazon was, the godfather of e-commerce, right? It was in its infancy when they started doing what they were doing. So there is a competitive advantage now, and there will be for a little while. But you can take advantage of that right now. And I would say if you don't know how, if you don't know how to communicate it to your team, you could be one of those business owners or senior managers that is not even mentioning it to your team because you're afraid it's going to scare them, right? That they're going to lose their jobs. Or you may be afraid yourself that it's going to take your job or make you less relevant. And that's just not the case. That's BS. That's a belief system. And I think you and I personally are on a mission to change that belief system and help businesses figure out how they can win in the least amount of time and have the greatest impact bringing AI into their operations.
You'll love this. First of all, you're right about the window. I don't love when people are talking with certainty around. You see a lot of this on X and even Instagram, where people say it's coming, the Armageddon's coming at this time frame. Maybe it's coming a little bit, but we don't know exactly when. But I do know this. I feel confident in this. Right now is the time to be jumping in. And I'm not saying recklessly or full throttle. Just incrementally is good too. Now's the time to be learning, ramping up, and implementing a lot of what the technology and the advantages that we're talking about. It's a great time to be doing that because people are still really learning and the tools themselves are rapidly evolving and changing. You're getting new insights and versions of some of these tools almost weekly. So now's a great time to be doing this. And then the other thing, Patrick, that you'll love even more though, because you already knew that, is just in the last 3 days, I had two completely separate conversations with people that I have a lot of respect for. They're out there making stuff happen in their businesses. They both told me when I told them what you and I have been putting together and how we're now helping others, they both said unsolicited, you are so onto it. Like what you guys are doing and how you're going to help businesses, that is just around the corner. Because all of a sudden they're going to be using these tools more in some companies, especially the mid-sized ones, and they're going to need that guidance on fill in the blank communication, rollout, a little more strategy, maturity models. What are you targeting to be in? What place to be in 3 months, 6 months, 12 months? They're like so many leaders, execs, and managers are going to need this help. It's coming. That's what two people told me. I go, I know. I really feel that is exactly what's coming, and that's what we want to help with.
So with that said, Scott, I think it's a perfect time to say, okay, when can people expect to be able to get engaged with us? And I'll put some information in the show notes, and I'll even put a little graphic in this towards the end. But I mean, we're pretty much ready to rock and roll. But just best way to get in contact, learn more information.
My answer to that is yesterday. I genuinely feel like the best time to do it, if you haven't done it already, get in touch with us is right now. And because if nothing else, and then I'll make a mention of a contact, if nothing else, you get a little insight, because the more if you're listening to this and you're thinking about, hey, I need to get further along or even just flat out get started, just by having those conversations and engaging with it mentally, you're doing yourself a big service. So if you haven't started already, start today. Look me up, Scott Stolze online. You can find me very easily on Instagram and LinkedIn are the two places where I leverage most of my online presence and get contacted by other people. I like to keep it really simple. Just look me up, LinkedIn or Instagram, and Patrick's going to put some other information in the show notes about how to reach out to him and us collectively. But just last plug, Patrick, too, is the other good thing about you and I is we're not working in a vacuum. I think it's really important. And I gave this thought last night, knowing we were doing this today. You and I are constantly talking to other people who are implementing, using, and learning. So we also have access to other people who are bringing good perspective to the table and other resources, like technical resources that Patrick and I don't necessarily provide, but might be of huge value to you.
To that point, Scott, you're somebody that's been working with businesses, business owners, team members of businesses for a long time. I mean, that's your expertise. I'm grinding it every day, CEO of an HVAC company. I worked my way up from being a technician. My wife and I have two healthcare businesses. I do the podcast, and I'm using AI every single day personally, and we've got different tools we're using and the team is using. So, we're not like somebody with an IT background, or we're not somebody that is just, up to our elbows in this every single day. You're hearing from people that are been there, done that, and are still doing it, and now just want to help accelerate others with what we know and what we learned. And I think that the combination of the two of us, humbly, I will say, is a big win for anybody we work with.
Yeah, I agree. I can't say it any better myself. I mean, trust in, here's what I would acknowledge with that is, in today's world, because we do so much online and digitally and through all of us, we're immersed in our laptops and phones for good reason often. But when it comes to relationships, business included, there has to be that trust and likability. And I think you and I both, upon getting to know us, maybe not through the screen, but upon a conversation or two, and then seeing what it is we can do together or with or for you, you be the judge. I'd put Patrick and I up against anybody, and not that it's a competition, but you will get authenticity, but more importantly, you'll get a lot of credibility and trust and the intention of how we're here to help you. I have no other vested interest in this other than to see people win. That's what gets me going every day. And I know, Patrick, it's funny because you already have, like you just alluded to, not only the general, but things you do with your wife and in the community there. Everybody needs to hear this. You don't need to be doing this, but you are, because you like to see other people win.
Oh yeah. It is really cool when you can help and you can give back. And that's why I'm doing this podcast. Believe me, trying to produce an episode about once a week, especially in the early days, it's not an easy task, but I like it. And I love when I run into somebody who listens to the podcast and gives me great feedback on it and how it's helped them and so on and so forth. So yeah, I really like being able to help and give back. And so I'm just excited. I'm really excited to be able to work with you on this level. And, with that said, this was supposed to be a quick episode. It turned into be a pretty decent length one for as my episodes go. And I just want to say thanks, Scott, for joining us on another episode of the Tradepreneur Show. I know I'll have you back for more. We can discuss various topics as it relates to the trades and helping those in the trades out there. And so listen, if you're a tradesman, whether you're a technician, apprentice, you've been doing it for a while, you're a business owner, a new business owner, experienced business owner, whatever you are, listen, it's a grind. And as we said earlier, it's consistency. Consistency wins the day. So stay consistent, keep doing the right things, and you will get to where you want to be. I can promise you that. And with that said, until next time, win the day and be great.